implore the men in the world who have women that they say they care about, daughters that they are raising, that this is their issue too. I mean, for men to sit on their hands over this issue and trade out women's health for a tax break or whatever it is a sad statement about that man's level of value of the women in their life.
We're talking about how expensive it was to live in the White House. Go for it.
It's expensive to live in the White House,
Yeah.
as many people don't know. Sure. I mean, much is not covered. You're paying for every bit of food that you eat. You're not paying for housing and the staff in it, but everything, even travel. If you're not traveling with the president, if your kids are coming on a Bright Star, which is the First Lady's plane, we had to pay for their travel to be on the plane.
Michelle Obama strode in, wrapped in her trademark aura of untouchability. Then Charlie Kirk and Patrick Bet-David cracked the sky. With razor wit and ice-cold receipts, they shredded the flawless facade, revealing the contradictions hiding behind the grins and glitter. This wasn't a debate. It was a televised reality check. Loud, unapologetic, impossible to mute. By the end, even die-hard fans were rubbing their eyes, wondering what they'd just seen.
Oh yes, no, she's at her complaining quotient, but I guess she's talking about abortion there as if like, women's health. But let me just be clear: not a single Trump voting male in the world is ever going to be won over by complaining Michelle Obama. Just to make she looks.
Why would you ever post this picture? Yes. No, the people were, and I'm actually not being funny. They were asking Barack, why would you ever post this picture? What part of Michelle's picture? Barack looks great. That is not a...
Can you close up on her, Rob?
Actually don't. But can you zoom out a little bit? Not for bad reasons. It's just she doesn't look good in that picture. Yeah. Sometimes you don't look good. So guess what you do when sometimes you don't look good? You ask and you say, hey, babe, you okay if I post this picture? No, use this one.
Charlie Kirk opened like a man who's been loading this roast since he first heard the title Becoming. Unflustered, he slid straight for the ideological jugular. No theatrics, just facts left to detonate under their own weight. He spread the record on the table and let its bloated self-importance implode.
Push through it. And one side note on Michelle Obama, can we just note how overrated she is? And like all the hype around Michelle Obama, she's going to run for office, and she's just... I don't want to get into the aesthetics of all of it, but the presentation of her podcast is terrible.
I've never been in the Michelle Obama's running for president campaign.
Let me ask you a question.
I don't get it.
Let me ask you a question. How much of becoming a president on the Democratic side, hear me out, how much of being a president on the Democratic side do you think is you getting picked or you saying, I'm going to be a president? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay, how much of it do you think is the first?
Quick reminder, smash that subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a takedown. Michelle Obama, Kirk said, isn't a retired first lady. She's a full-time influencer with a part-time relationship to accountability. Somewhere between the Netflix specials and stadium book tours, she seems to have forgotten that Americans remember real life, not just camera angles and filtered empowerment speeches.
So recently, I have mourned the dimming of that hope, and maybe you've experienced the same feelings, that deep pit in my stomach, a palpable sense of dread about the future.
It's so dark. And now she's saying, now I have hope because of Kamala Harris. The apocalyptic undertones of the Democrat Party is dramatic. This is their identity. This is their purpose.
Charlie's trademark is simple. He doesn't punch up or down. He punches wherever the nonsense lives. And Michelle's brand is a mansion built on narrative gymnastics. He recapped how the woman who once claimed to be above politics has had her fingerprints on every culture war grenade since 2009.
If all of a sudden the Dems did flip in August and they put a Newsom, Michelle combination, do you know what mainstream media would do with that? CNN, what Jimmy Fallon, Colbert, all these podcasts, the Oprah Winfrey, the NBA, LeBron.
Forget it.
Do you know what Taylor Swift, do you know what these guys would be doing? It would be bonkers. By the way, if it is Michelle and Newsom, it's going to be a dog.
Subtlety. She treats it like an allergy. She could pen a kid's book on broccoli and still sneak in a voter suppression swipe. Kirk made it clear this wasn't about disagreeing over policy. It was about exposing performance art posing as compassion. He dismantled her carefully curated persona like a wobbly IKEA shelf. Michelle, the sneaker-dancing everywoman who also plays Oprah meets revolutionary. If she really embodied the oppressed, he quipped, she wouldn't be sipping imported tea on a 60-grand chaise while scolding working-class Americans for dreaming too small. That gulf is so wide, it needs its own zip code.
Reasons, it's just she doesn't look good in that picture. Yeah. Sometimes you don't look good. So guess what you do when sometimes you don't look good? You ask and you say, hey, babe, you okay if I post this picture? No, use this one, use that one, use this one. So I don't even know why he posted the picture. You know, he has his own reasons for posting a picture. So a lot of people said, why are you even doing this? It's not cool for you to post a picture like this. So
he skewered the media's treatment of Michelle, like teenagers worshiping a boy band incapable of objectivity. Question her? Racist. Fact check her? Sexist. Her memoir, he said, wasn't soul-bearing. It was focus-grouped merchandise engineered to stir emotion, never scrutiny. There's a chasm, he declared, between a role model and a role player, and she's firmly the latter. Then he diffused her infamous line about not being proud of America until a certain election, delicately, like a bomb technician.
All the time, and she's complaining. Right, again, I'm not trying to look at people's looks. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just saying the whole aura of it, to use a Gen Z term, is terrible. It's negative. It's just kind of her lamenting. And then she's obviously, there's problems with her daughters and all that. I don't want to get into that. But we built up on the right. Michelle Obama is going to be the hardest person ever to run against. And her book sold so many copies. And
who enjoys every liberty a nation offers, climbs to its loftiest tier, and still moralizes about its failings. Kirk called Michelle's America a hologram, an imagined dystopia that never slows her private jet schedule. Enter Patrick Bet-David, where Kirk is a sniper, Patrick is a wrecking crew, with cinematic flair and a grin that said, "You already know." He wondered aloud why the press treats Michelle like she's beyond reproach, then proceeded to prod every sacred cow grazing in her rhetorical pasture.
Of course, I mean, look, first of all, just like the embedded kind of just implied chauvinism that all of our relationships in the Trump world are like, we tell our wives exactly what to do. It's like, okay, no, we all have agency, okay? Secondly, I just have to comment on this. She's really lost a step. Just embedded in her language is like, she's really...
He mocked the idea of Michelle as the nation's moral compass, wagging her finger at millions while cashing checks from the corporations she scolds. 10 years in the White House, endless influence, and still clinging to victimhood? His parody of her dramatic pauses and knitted brows landed like a billionaire whining about ATM fees. The media applauds anyway, because challenging Michelle is like challenging gravity. You simply don't.
And more energy and more intensity. It's like this Michelle Obama just looks broken. And she's kind of doing the wine mom thing, and she's just kind of like, I'm just kind of meandering through life. Anyway, I'm not upset about
populated like every 30 seconds with, what about me? No one asks about me.
Totally, exactly. Or and Megan, I know you'll take this in good stride, but she's like, we black women need to complain more. Yeah, that's the problem.
Patrick drilled into the establishment's obsession with crowning Michelle political royalty. It's not her resume. It's a prefabricated narrative. She isn't admired. She's projected upon, a flawless mascot for a movement that thrives on illusion. Scratch the applause lines, and you meet a woman who never risked status, salary, or comfort. Only other people's trust.
Michelle Obama says, until recently, I've mourned the dimming of that hope. And maybe you've experienced the same feelings. Is that a pit in my stomach? A palpable sense of dread about the future? Now, look, Michelle Obama has well-documented anxiety problems. And it's very interesting. When they are not in control of political power, they get anxiety. And being at the DNC, this for them is church. For them, this was a religion.
Her activism, he joked, has all the peril of a scented candle. Rise up, but please, after brunch. The revolution arrives in a gift bag, complete with signed book and podcast code. She wields power from the emotional high ground. She doesn't debate, she emotes, and dissenters aren't wrong, they're heartless. It's brilliant stagecraft, but still stagecraft. Once you spot the trick, you can't unsee it.
You really have to wonder. In fact, if we would have said 3 weeks ago, Blake, if we would have said that Joy Reid and Michelle Obama and Sheila Jackson Lee and Ketanji Brown Jackson were affirmative action picks, we would have been called the racist. But now they're coming out and they're saying it for us. They're coming out and they're saying, I'm only here because of affirmative action. Yeah, we know. You do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously. You had to go steal a white person's slot to go be taken.
Patrick's closing Molotov. Michelle, the self-styled outsider, is the epitome of the establishment. When the most celebrated, wealthy woman in America still claims victim status, you have to ask, what exactly counts as winning? Her story only works if everyone suspends disbelief. Kirk and Patrick rip down the velvet curtain, revealing an illusion, powered by emotion over evidence.
So, what are you thinking when you're giving this message? Like, what are you thinking in your mind? Because let's do data. Rob, can you type in Obama's net worth in 2007? What was Obama in 2007? 1.2 million, 1.3 million. Okay. So their net worth is, let's write this down. This is pre-White House. Their collective net worth was 1.3 million. Can you go to where their net worth was in 2016 when they're done being presidents? Okay. 2016. So their net worth, as expensive as it was, they went from being 1.3 million to 12.2 million.
Kirk targeted the ideological flip-flops. Patrick torched the cultural myth-making. Together, they sliced through Michelle Obama's persona. Not out of spite, but because someone had to say it. A smile and buzzwords don't make you a hero. They make you good at branding. The audience, once starstruck, now sees the cracks. And when the illusion fractures, the whole script eventually unravels. Patrick lobbed one last grenade. Why does Michelle's outreach always happen behind velvet ropes? Kirk reminded us that the deadliest deception is the half-truth wrapped in thunderous applause. This roast wasn't just about Michelle. It was about the entire machine that keeps her myth alive.